Hey everybody, welcome to episode 9 of Between Whiskey and Pneumonia. Drew Shapiro here with my co-host Nick Hatt. Today we're happy to be joined by Pastor Jason McKay, Associate Pastor at the Freedom Center. Thanks for coming on the show, Jason.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Love to hear about your experiences as a pastor, what led you to that work, and cover a range of different topics today.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned, the premise for the show, and what we really enjoy doing is having people on from all different walks of life and professions and backgrounds, and trying to entertain, educate our audience a little bit. And
Yeah, for sure. I'm an open book, man.
perfect. So tell us about the type of work you do and the Freedom Center. And
Sure. Freedom Center is a church right there in Fenton, right behind the high school. And it's been there for a long time. I've been there for 25 years. My wife and I started attending there. And I just, to make the long story short, I say we accidentally became the youth pastors. And it was definitely not in the cards that I was holding, but God had a bigger plan. And just, crazy events. Next thing you know, I'm the youth pastor doing 5th and 6th, and then it ended up being 7th and 8th, and then it ended up being all of junior high, and then it ended up being all of the youth, and then it was all of the youth plus the FCA, Freedom Center Academy, that I now run. And so something had to break, so youth went to Pastor JD and then to Pastor Maddie, which are both my students in 5th grade, which is cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool being old and being in the same place for so long. Older than them, you know
Right.
what I mean? I'm 47, so I'm not old, but whatever. The 20-year-olds like to call me old. I still race them. But yeah, it's cool. So now I got my 5th graders are the youth pastors
Wow.
from back in the day. And now we run this, it's a ministry academy. We have a creative academy, and we have a worship track as well. And yeah, that's what we spend our whole time doing, is just that now specifically. And it's amazing.
That's awesome. I think I met you, probably October, November, at a pretty interesting point in my life. I had just gotten out of the hospital and had a close call there, and it was a really interesting time. And I've enjoyed the coffee group, and I haven't been in a while. And I was listening to your sermon or message from Sunday today, and I'm like, oh man. There's a big part of showing up that was showcased here. And I haven't been showing up, so
it was good conversation after that.
For sure.
It was. We meet 5:30 to 6:30 a.m. every Wednesday. That's our men's ministry. So that's the other thing I do at the church now. So associate pastor, which basically my job is to do anything the senior pastor doesn't want to do. That's the way he explains it. I'm sure that's in writing somewhere. And and I love it. I absolutely couldn't imagine doing anything else. I had no ambition to do this back when I started. Now I could never imagine not doing it. It's one of those crazy cool things.
What did you do prior to becoming a youth pastor and now
construction,
associate pastor?
Painting mainly. I painted since I was 12 years old. My dad painted, my brother painted, my other brother painted, my 4 sisters painted. Literally everybody painted. And so when I was 18, my wife and I got married, and all of a sudden I'm self-employed and I'm a painter. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to run a business. I knew how to paint, but I didn't know how to run a business. And so there's a big difference. And went out there and just struggle bust all the way along and she was 4 months pregnant when we got married, which is one of the main reasons I discounted myself to ever be the pastor guy, because you got to be holy and float around on clouds, right? You have to be perfect in every way. And that's not me, so I fought it for a long time, but ended up making it through, and just, this wasn't cutting it. I'm making, I don't know, this was 1994, and I was probably making $12,000 a year if I'm lucky, Mm-hmm. So definitely needed help and assistance in every way, shape, and form. I didn't know what I was doing. I just prayed, and God hooked me up with a job. It was actually Gordon Food Service, working in their warehouse. And I prayed and said, God, I need a real job. I don't have an education. I got my GED. I'm like, struggle bus. Life was hard. And I applied at the warehouse and applied again because they rejected me. And then I got an interview, and then I applied again because they rejected me after the interview. And I'm like, no was not something I was about to take. And I really felt like God was saying, this is it. So I ended up getting a job there. I ended up thriving. They sent me to these classes, dimensional management training, Dale Carnegie course. They're like, hey, your management material. I said, let's go. So I was happy there. I was making, back then, I think it was close to 50 grand a year, which was great for someone with a GED
For sure.
in, the late 90s. Super good. I was so happy. I'm like, yes, God, I believe in you, kind of thing. And then he told me to quit. And I was like, that does not compute. And next thing you know, I reluctantly, obedient, stepped down from that job and went back into painting, which is what I felt God was calling me to do. And went back in with my dad, who is retired from Chrysler, so he doesn't have to run a business like I have to run a business. He doesn't have to pay his bills like I have to pay my bills. And so it was interesting because God taught me how to run, how to manage, he put me through that season. I call it the desert, call it whatever you want. That season where I learned so much about managing and investing into people and how to talk to people, that my business all of a sudden took off and thrived. And it was, I did not expect it. We had one bathroom to paint when my first day. I'm like, well, okay, this will take a day. And the next day we had a bedroom and a bathroom. And the next day we had a 3-bed. Next thing you know, we had subdivisions and crews, and all the crews then were from the church. And there were these young adults, and I'm investing, and next thing you know, I'm a pastor. So all those skills, because God knew that if he said, hey, I'm calling you to be a pastor, I'd have been like, see ya.
Right.
I would, no way, though. I would never have answered the call. But he knew that me being hard-headed, I had to go through this process to learn things that I knew. I knew what I learned there. I wasn't going to second-guess myself. But I knew before that I didn't know how to lead people. I didn't know how to run a ministry or a job site or anything. And now that's literally what I do. But it's not just getting the job done, although we do that well. We get the job done, but we're also looking for every opportunity to shape and mold people along the way. So
That's awesome.
that's the long answer of the short. So there's a short one. You want the short one?
No, that's great. I mean, married at 18,
Yeah.
you don't see that be successful every day.
It's pretty cool. I'm 47 and I'm a grandpa to 2.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. Honestly, it's the best. Being a dad's cool. Being a grandpa, so much better.
Right on.
My mom would probably agree.
Yeah.
She would definitely
Oh,
agree.
yeah.
But no, that's great. I like how you laid out the sequence of how things happen, and I find that it usually, when it happens that way, it always works out for the best. And also, like you were saying about being a pastor and not being the perfect person,
Right.
At least in my mind, if I'm going to have someone tell me how I need to act, I want to, I want to hear it from somebody who's acted that way, and it's not just talking, telling me what they think I need to hear.
Yep. Been there.
So
done that.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, for people who are maybe just listening and aren't getting the video when they do listen to this, I think we all have, or some of us, at least me, have this picture of, what a pastor is in our mind. And it's like the collar, or maybe a button-up shirt, like buttoned all the way to the top button. And it's just, it's just not that. And,
Not the beach attire.
right, exactly. So I find that relatableness is really beneficial.
Right.
I
It's
mean,
exactly what Nick said. If somebody's going to be telling me, investing into me and giving me tips on how to live my life, I want it to be somebody who's been there, done that.
Right.
In one way, shape, or form. But hopefully they're on the other side. If you want to be a millionaire, you need to hang out with billionaires, right? That's just the bottom line. So
Exactly.
that goes for good and the bad.
right.
Exactly. But as far as you said about the average, I think there's a trend in the churches. And maybe you could tell me a little bit more. But the few churches that we've been to in the last couple of years, it seems like the pastors are a lot more laid back now, a lot more relatable.
For sure.
They're not up there in a suit and tie and
Right.
Yep.
stiff. It's more.
There's churches out there.
It's more conversational to me.
Yeah.
So
There's churches out there. I've seen both, but I definitely think that's the new spin, if you will. And it's all about being relatable, right? I mean, as a pastor, I want to connect to the people. Jesus literally said, I will make you fishers of men. What lure are you going to use? The way I dress, the way I talk, the way I act, the things I do is literally for one specific reason. I mean, to be very blunt, my life is all about the gospel. Like it's Jesus, and that's it. That's if like the word says, Paul says, he's dead to himself and alive in Christ. If it's no longer he who lives, but Christ in him, that's That's a weird thing, especially to this culture, right? And so that's where I'm at with my relationship with Jesus. I'm sold out 100%. And when he says I'll make you fishers of men, not to take it literally, but
Right.
this shirt might be a lure to catch a young adult. Right. If I get to have a conversation with somebody about Jesus because I'm wearing this or a backwards hat or whatever, so be it. I'm 100% in, because that's just where I'm at. It's an eternal perspective versus a here and now. That short-term vision, not about that. I'm about that eternal. It's a marathon.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that in your message from Sunday, talking about this just being a glimpse, right?
Right, a vapor.
And, yeah, a vapor, yeah. That was how you explained it. And maybe you could expound on that a little bit and talk a little bit about that Father's Day message you delivered.
Yeah.
I think there were a lot of great points in it.
Yeah, for sure. And I am, being the men's pastor, I know Pastor Jim had asked me about taking over the men's ministry back, I don't even know, 3 or 4 years ago now, something like that, maybe 5. And I just absolutely, it was without hesitation, like I would love to, because men are so important. Fathers, dads are so important. And I know there's so many people that want to jump on a bandwagon and shoot it down, but the statistics are there. The facts are there. You can't deny that the father is the most crucial part to the family element. Not to say that the mom's not, because she is. She's a huge crucial part to the element. Everybody loves mama,
For sure.
And the kids and all of it. But dads play such a huge part. And I shot off some statistics. I don't remember. I think the one that stuck out, and probably the one I've heard the most, was the 85% of the inmates that are in prison come from a fatherless home. Suicides were 71%. I don't remember.
90% of runaways.
Yeah.
Yes. 85% of youth suicides.
Yeah.
High school dropouts. All those things that you're.
And I said in my, that was one place that I sourced, right? So you can Google it. I'm sure you can find other statistics, but all of them are going to be ridiculous. They might not be that high, or you might find higher. I don't know. But because you can Google and find anything. But the statistics are real. I mean, every single one of us knows somebody that's dealing with it. You can see them across the room. You can spot them out of a crowd of people. It's the ones who are, they're missing something. Something's not there. And so dads are huge. So with that being said, men are definitely something that I love to invest into. Dads, men, period. People, because we're leaders. We're just, when we speak, that's just, we're speaking life or we're speaking death. And people take that to heart. Our kids, our families, and I have not mastered this, for the record, it's just knowledge that I have. I'm still working on me. Right. I am a constant work in progress. You can ask anybody that I know. They'll tell you. But I do recognize it, and I do want to be better at it. And so I think that's the thing. It's not that I've arrived. It's that I know the direction I'm going, right? I've set the course. I want to be somebody who speaks life into my wife, into my kids, into my kids I'm discipling, whatever the case may be. But anyway, so Father's Day, the huge passion for dads. And so I think the big right hook was all those statistics, and then just saying, people ask how you do it. I talked about the Iron Cowboy, Jeremy Lawrence. I think that's his name.
James Lawrence.
James Lawrence, yes. James Lawrence, dude, run 100 Ironman triathlons in 100 days. Absolute psycho. I have so much respect for that absolute psycho. And he just raised the bar so stinking high. So I talked about that. I kind of did the sales pitch sort of way. It's like, he did 30 of these in 30 days. He did 50 in 50 days. And then, built up. People are like already holding their mouths like they're in shock. And then he did 100 in 100 days. It's literally impossible. It can't be done, but he did it. And then I'm like, I just trying to get out of bed when my alarm goes off, man. Right. Like Iron Man, 100 Iron. What are you talking about? Right. And I think the point is, again, it's not that you need to arrive and be there. You don't need to do 100 Ironman triathlons in order to say, finally, I have arrived. But you do need to get out of bed. You do need to get up. You do need to do the things that you said you're going to do. You do need to show up to the ball game. You do need to speak life over your wife. You do need that. We have a responsibility to do the things that we say we're going to do in order to be men of integrity and character, which in my opinion is a man. If you want to be a man at all, you have to have that. So the bottom line is, and this is what he said, show up. How do you do it? It's impossible. He said, show up. Then he said, which I love this line. I think I'm going to get it tattooed somewhere where everybody sees it. It says, get rid of the entitlement, get rid of the excuses, and do what you want to do. I was like, yes, that was so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought it was great. And entitlement, that's a word that's thrown around a lot these days.
Oh.
It's interesting times we live in. And I think you always have these things that are competing for people's attention. And we tend to maybe forget, some of the bigger things like the fatherless aspect you were talking about. And I think someone told me one time that if you were married and there was joint income in the household, that it raised the standards to get welfare or food stamps or food assistance. So you actually have the government disincentivizing people from being married or having a father in the home.
Yep.
And it's like, how do you compete with something like that?
Right. And that started off with good intentions because the scenarios are what they are. But then when people started learning how to play the system, they're shooting themselves in the foot, though, because, nobody wants to commit. And so there's a great reason to not commit as a guy, who's just a dog at heart, trying to tame that dog, but you're a dog at heart, right? And so you got this opportunity to have this live-in person, but not be absolutely committed to it. Like a piece of paper means anything,
right?
To be honest, but that covenant, it does something spiritually. That's why people resist it, but there is a covenant that takes place, and it's a God thing, right? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, no doubt. So, how do you, compete with that? When you're working with people and mentoring them and trying to lead them, when this information overload age we're in, where, our phones, everything's an advertisement.
Yeah.
How do you break through that?
If you peel back layer by layer, right? If you just peel back layer by layer, all the things that I need to work on, because I keep saying, I'm not there, but I'm working on it. Okay, great. I appreciate the heart behind that. But if I peel back layer after layer and I just keep refining myself over and over and over again, I mean, how old would I be before I finally arrive?
Right.
It's forever, right? You're never going to get there. That's not the point. The point is the direction. And so with students, for example, I've had students up to 33, I think, is the oldest one we've had, and then straight out of high school, so young adults essentially. And there's a lot of entitlement that comes that I have it, you have it, we all have it, that we don't even think about entitlement. When someone's going slow in the fast lane,
right?
That'll make me roid out. Are you kidding me? But that's the stupidest thing in the world, because what is that really doing to me? Nothing. But what's right is right, which is entitlement, right? I deserve to go fast. Okay, well, and I know people want to debate that. Go for it. Debate it away. But the reality is, it's all about me. And so to be able to minister to these students, to be able to refine these students and help them get to where they want to get, the first thing I do is when somebody says they want to join the ministry academy, I will take them out to lunch and I will try my best to convince them not to join the ministry academy, because I can convince you to join it. I can convince you to join it. Our goal, for the record, our goal is not to make everybody a pastor or a missionary. The ministry academy is about refining. It's about everything we're talking about. It's do the hard things, because the hard things are the only things worth doing. Like, that's just what this is about. It's about work ethic. It's about being a man or a woman of your word and just integrity. And they do scripture memorization. So can you become a missionary or a pastor? Absolutely. We have curriculum for that. We have schooling for that. But reality is, it's kind of the school of hard knocks, so to speak. We're very strict and intentional with the way we run the thing. Like, for example, being on time. If you're 1 minute late, that's 1 hour on your day off that you have to come in and make up. So if you're 10 minutes late, that's 10 hours on your day off that you have to come in. And we've had people who have been 60 hours late. And yes, that's 60 hours that they now have to come in on their after, because we're done at 3:00. So after time, or on their days off. And sometimes other people will jump in and it's kind of a really cool thing, to be honest, because there's such a unity that's built through that. That doesn't happen all the time, but it definitely does happen, usually to at least every student at least once. The alarm doesn't go off or whatever, but being on time is an important thing. You're stealing from people. So we take it and I don't pull my punch on that, because it's such a big deal. Same thing, we do 10 verses that they memorize every week. And so They get to pick whatever verses they want to pick. So I'm not going to be like, tell them what they have to memorize, as long as it's the Bible. And when they do that at the end of the year, they got 520 verses that they've committed to heart and memory, which is super powerful. And they got this little ring with all their note cards on it. It's pretty cool. So it's intense. If they get one of those wrong, that's an hour. So they need to study. We give them study time. So the point being is that not all of them are called to be missionaries. Not all of them are called to be pastors, but every single one of us as a Christian, if you consider yourself a Christian, you are called to be a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, regardless of where you're at. So it doesn't matter if I'm painting something or if I'm on the line at GM or wherever, that is my pulpit. So just because I have a microphone in my hand on stage, okay, that's cool. And my first name is Pastor, but reality is when I'm out there doing side jobs, I'm just probably more of a pastor. I probably can do more work there because people don't expect it. They expect this, foul mouth construction worker guy, and they get somebody who's like, hey, can I pray for you? And they're like, what? And so it's kind of cool. But now I'm trying to get back to your question. Your question was,
how do you break through in today's age where there's so many distractions, right?
So to draw that picture, I try to talk them out of joining. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because I can convince them to join because it sounds awesome. We go on trips and all this stuff. But if I convince them to join, I'm going to have to convince them to stay every single day because it's freaking hard.
Right.
It's freaking hard. That's bottom line. People get in your business. We're about unity. So we're about vulnerability. We're about being open and transparent. And believe it or not, I think that's what men are made out of, should be made out of. They're not, but that's what we should be made out of, is being able to say, hey, I suck. I need prayer, or I'm struggling with this. And that's not something that's cultivated in our culture. So when I say I don't think you should join, I tell them, I kind of lay it out there and say, understand this. We have two goals, and that's it. One is that our goal is to die to myself. And they kind of look at you like, huh? But that's biblical, right? To pick up your cross every day. Jesus said, hey, live life like I just did. So we're supposed to die to ourselves. And the other one is to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. So if I'm dying to myself, that means everything that I want has to go to the wayside. So this is the conversation I have before they ever join. And then I say, and we want to bring the kingdom to earth. And in the kingdom of heaven, right, there's no tears, there's no mourning, no sorrow. It's all. So this means we're going to be praying for people. We're going to ask God to heal people. We're going to go out and do these things. We're not just going to be the people who sit on the sidelines and talk about it. So we are very active in our faith, even if you've never done it. So then I had that conversation. That is kind of the pre-conversation to the entire year, because every single time something happens, everybody has their moments. You're allowed to fail. You are absolutely. In fact, if you don't fail, you're probably not going to grow. So we tell them.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And so I tell them all the time, like, you're going to fail things. You're going to be late. You're going to mess up on your first test. You're going to, I don't know, whatever, fill in the blank. The thing is, you're going to forget, and that mindset's going to come up, well, I deserve. When you forget that our goals are to die to yourself and bring the kingdom of earth, my promise to you, my student, is that I won't. And so it's a cultural shift. It's a major cultural shift. And when we've been marinating in the culture that this world provides, the Bible makes it clear that we're to be in the world, but not of the world. And so this is just who we are. And so if I have to pick them up and carry them a couple yards, that's okay. I don't mind that. And I'll tell them that. You're going to forget, and I'm not. And so that's kind of the beginning of that culture shift. And now I'll give them permission to check me, because I know I can be smart mouth. I can be funny in my own mind, and I'll say things or do something that's not appropriate or not God, or it's not what I want, but yet it comes up flying out of my face kind of thing. So I'll tell my students, you have every right to hold me accountable. And I tell men's ministry, same thing. I absolutely hold me accountable, because I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to say this and then do that. That's called a hypocrite. And we all have that a little bit. I don't want that in me.
No doubt. And I think when you're trying to develop accountability like that, it has to go both ways. Right.
Yeah, it does. Otherwise, you're just the sage from the stage, slamming down your fist, cracking the whip. I'm not that guy. Not ever. Don't ever want to be that guy.
So, rewind just a little bit. And this is the type of work you do with the Freedom Center Academy, right?
It is.
And how long have you been doing that? The academy?
5 years full time. So I think like 7 years.
Right on.
Maybe 8.
So, and you've got a pretty wide age range of, young adults primarily. So, have you seen, I'm sure you have, but, some success stories from that with radical transformations?
Yeah.
Because, I'm thinking about, man, 1 minute late, that's some motivation. 1 minute late's an hour added on. That's some motivation to not hit the snooze button.
Yeah.
And
fear's a great motivator.
that's something we all, I can't say we all, but I struggle with sometimes. I'll hit that snooze button a couple times. But, wow.
The snooze button's of the devil, man. Right. That snooze button is a lie. If you think about it, and scientifically it's proven that if you hit that snooze button, you're screwing yourself over. Yeah. It's funny. I literally make my students, I'll go through, especially if they're late, I'll have the conversation. I'll say, I'll teach them, I'll go open up my phone, go to your alarms. Let's set every single alarm for the day of the week. Some of them are the same, some of them are not. And I'll say, now get rid of the snooze button on every one of those. Mm-hmm. That instantly invokes a little bit of a fear, like, dude, I can't do that. What if I don't wake up? No, you will wake up. But what if I shut it off? Well, then you're screwed.
Right.
But you put yourself in a position where you do or die, and then all of a sudden you do, and you're like, oh. And scientifically, you get this rush of adrenaline when you wake up, when your alarm goes off.
That makes sense. Yeah, there's no snooze button. I have to get up now.
Right. Yeah. Right. I say fear is a great motivator. I don't mean it like a drill sergeant type. I mean it like I really, fire, for example, or if there's 2 lines in this room right now, like we need to run. That fear is a good thing.
Right.
Fear can definitely be a bad thing, but it can definitely be a good thing too. It's all about how you use it. It's like fire. Fire kills a lot of people every year. What are we going to do? Get rid of it? No, you just use it correctly. And it also saves our lives every stinking winter,
Right.
So kill the snooze button. That's my theory.
No, I like that. Typically I'm waking up before the alarm goes off, but but there's days.
I should try it. Try it tomorrow.
Yeah, do it. Do it. I'd love to hear it.
That's great advice. So like I was, getting at a little bit, do you have some success stories you could share from the program?
I have so many success stories. It's narrowing it down to the success story.
Yeah.
I mean, as of right now, I have so many students that are out there doing ministry full time. They're children's pastors. I have one right now who's actually he went up to Tawas and applied, and they met a few times, and he went there yesterday. I think it was yesterday, and had his last interview, and he's about to hear back if he's getting the job to be a children's pastor.
Awesome.
And this one specifically, it's his name's Austin. He's a great guy. He went to college for 4 years, got his degree, came back to the church, was helping out in our children's ministry, and I kept nudging him every time I see him, and he'd be like, yeah, leave me alone. I'm like, hey, man, you're supposed to join, right? He's like, yeah. And next thing you know, he's ducking down the hall every time I see him, so I'd trap him in a corner and be like, why are you dipping me, man? And kind of joking, but also we both knew he was supposed to do it, and eventually he's like, fine, he did it. He joins, and God just rocked his world and prepped him and gave him a network. I watch students specifically on the time thing. One, his name's Zeke. He's also a great guy. He was, I will say, habitually late, often. Like it was nonstop.
I know you encountered that.
He was habitually late, and he would absolutely attest to this. He'd be like, yes, 100%. I was late a lot, and he's on time now. I mean, for the second half of the year, it's a 12-month thing, so you can do 4 months. We do 4, 4, and 4. That's the way it starts. We have 3 start times, and he would show up late, 20 minutes late. Like, what are you doing, buddy? It's just the way it was, right? And so about 3 to 6 months in, he broke it. And it wasn't just through hard work and determination. It was also through prayer, because it really is more of a physical and spiritual and mental. And it's not one thing. We're fighting battles on every front, and to refine and try to get out of this culture of, well, I was tired, so I don't care if you were tired. Well, I went to bed at 3 a.m. And?
Right.
Right? Because guess what? Everybody else was here. It doesn't matter. We're all doing the same thing. And I promise you'll get enough sleep tonight. So he's one, and he's killing it. He's up in Otisville. He's killing it down there. I have a cool story about one of my students. They did it 1 year, and it can be up to a 3-year program. Basically, it's 1 year, which is the intense discipleship and kind of building the foundation is the way I like to explain it. A second year is actually, if you say, I'm going to go into ministry, then we're just going to launch you as fast as we can. The cost of the first year is $6,500. That covers the books that we use, as well as we go on 1 global trip and 2 within the United States trips. They're all mission trips, and many, 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 many other mini trips within Michigan. So that $6,500 covers that, maybe close enough. Yeah. And the second year, if you want to do it, is only 6 months. So we cut the time in half, and it's $1,000. That literally covers your schooling, which is the books. So, and you don't have to go on any of the trips. And if you want to, you can fundraise for that. And then the third year, you actually get paid to intern with the youth department or children's department, whatever. So it can be 3 years. But these 2 students did 1 year, and they were out, and they went and got a job, and they were working at a bank, a bigger bank. I don't remember the name of it, but it kind of, when they explained it, it kind of had a Google feel, if you will, one of those kind of environments. And they were hired from a temp agency. And then they had quite a few people that were hired from this temp agency. He went up north on vacation, came back, and everybody was gone. The whole temp agency people were gone. And the lady said, "Hey, can I talk to you in the office?" And she pulled him in the office, and he said, she sat me down and said, "Hey, listen, we let everybody go. We actually dropped everybody from the temp. We dropped the temp agency, which means we dropped everybody that was with the temp agency." And she said, "We're keeping you, and we're keeping Alex." It's Colin and Alex. And you guys are the only ones, because your work ethic is so pristine. You're intentional. You do things well. And she just started raving about them being on time and all the characteristics that we strive for. And he's like, he was telling me the story, and he said, "Man, if that's not a testimony for what FCMA does," that's because FCMA is the Ministry Academy portion. And he said, "If that's not a testimony for what FCMA does with, because you're not thinking about those things. That's just kind of like you slowly develop those."
Sure.
And it was cool. He said, "They kind of broke the law." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, they let the agency go, but they kept us." I was like, "Ooh, yeah, that's cool." And he said, "But it was cool because they were willing to do that, even if they had to pay a price, because they loved us." And it was those 2 people, and they didn't even know that they both did the same program and all that. So I think that was pretty giant testimony.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
Great. I think it starts with building habits,
Right.
habits and discipline.
Totally does. And doing it together with people, accountability.
Right.
So that's what we are. We're like this tight knit group, and we've I think we had 14 at one point, but since COVID, it's been 8 at the most, it's fine. It's like this tight knit group, and we all agree that this is what we're doing. So if we're going to climb Mount Everest, guess what? All of us together, we're going to do that. Because we're going to, as soon as you start slacking, I'm going to be pushing. As soon as I start slacking, he's going to be pushing, and so back and forth. And so that's what we do. We have one point that we all say, dying to myself. That's actually the goal, which is not a common goal, even amongst Christians, I would say. It's usually I'm trying to get as much as I can so I can get what I want. But the reality is we're supposed to live that way, and that's the most fulfilling life you will ever live. The moments, the little glimpses that I think, I'm like, "Oh, I think I did it." It's like, yeah, I'm going to sleep good tonight. That was cool.
Yeah. No, I think David Goggins, and I know you're a big reader, mentions that. He refers to it in a slightly different way, but killing that inner weakness in you.
Yeah.
And, there are glimpses of it, but sometimes that voice can be pretty loud.
Yeah. I love that you said I'm a big reader.
Yeah.
Because I've never been a big reader in my life, but I've read more books probably. I guarantee you by this time this year, I've never read as many books as I've read this year. I think it's only like 5 or 6, but I've been reading. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm enjoying this. Yeah. So I'm becoming a big reader, I would say. Yeah, it's good. But yeah, he talks about, I think he even quotes the pain is weakness.
Yeah.
Or
one of those quotes. And then,
how's that go? Pain is weakness, leaving the body. Weakness is however.
Yeah.
I'm saying it wrong.
No, I think we get the gist of it for sure. But, that's interesting. That resonated with me the way he says it in his book. But again, staying accountable to that, is a different story.
Yeah.
It's challenging.
And that's the difference, right? Because anybody can go do the thing. But then when you ask somebody for accountability, or if you write it down, that's always a big one. Writing down your goals. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Right, because it makes it real.
It's weird. It all of a sudden comes to life. Yeah. Yeah.
So what does it take to graduate?
You have to fulfill the year. And honestly, I used to say I've never had anybody ever quit. And I don't know what we're at, 50, 60, 70, I don't remember what it was, how many students have come through. We did have 2 young ladies that were there during COVID, the COVID breakout. And we used to go out and do a lot of things in the community. We would go downtown Flint and do ministry. We just, whether buy a dozen roses and just go out and start loving on people. Just be like, hey, God loves you, hand them a rose, kind of thing. Simple stuff like that. And obviously COVID hit and that knocked all that out. So 2 of the ladies that were in there were like, yeah, we're out. And we were doing Zoom meetings, and it was hard. It was a hard season. But as far as the season as is normal, if you are there, you really can't fail because we won't allow it. If that makes sense. So you're going to pass. I do expect you to get, we do this course called Berean, and it's through Global University online. So there's 10 books if you want to become a pastor through the Assemblies of God, which is who we're affiliated with. So Assemblies of God says if you do these books at this school, there's 10 of them. Our first year we have them do 4, because even if you're not going to become a pastor, you're basically studying the Bible at a college level, so it's a good thing, right? It's a good investment. So that, you got your verses to memorize, and yeah, that's it. By the end of the year, you watch people's eyes light up. At first they might not quite get it, even though we had the conversation, but at the end, halfway through, it's pretty cool.
So I imagine you've probably been on some pretty interesting trips as well.
Yeah.
I know I went to Israel on a birthright trip when I was 25.
That's awesome.
And it wasn't a mission trip really, but there was so much history associated with it.
It feels like one.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It was a great experience, and it just gives you a perspective and appreciation for different things, right?
That's awesome.
Like, I'm a tall guy, and like all the buildings, almost all the buildings, it's like I'm ducking, walking down all these hallways. Little things like that, learning that, most people in Israel don't get a vehicle till they're 40 years old. Wow. You serve your time in the military, then they travel the world typically for like a year, and then go to college, right? So it's this whole different way of doing things. And, I was happy to get home, but I'd love to go back someday.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the interesting places you've been to? And,
I love traveling. Yep. I do. I don't like the actual traveling part, but I like it when I get there.
Right.
Especially being a tall guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been, with our students, we've been to Japan, we've been to Germany, we've been to Mexico, we've been to Thailand, we've been all over the world. And every trip has been absolutely fantastic. Trying to think. Japan was interesting. The culture there, it was so interesting. I love, you walk down the streets of Tokyo and everything is like spotless. I'm like, what in the how do they? And there's no garbage. I'm carrying around garbage. This is kind of the other side of it, not the third world, but and I'm carrying around I think it was a coffee cup or something. I'm like, where is the garbage? And they're like, oh, they don't really have them very often. I'm like, could you ever been in New York or Chicago or any city? Right. It's like trash everywhere. And they said, so what they did is they used to have garbage cans, and then they would take them away one at a time. Like they'd space them out, and people would throw stuff away. But then they'd start going, oh, there's no garbage cans. And really, they said a lot of that trash comes, like New York and whatever, comes from the wind blowing when the trash is full and it blows it. It's not from people throwing it on the ground necessarily. And so they got rid of that, to where now they don't have hardly any garbages, and people carry around their trash, and they've that's genius, because it's spotless there. It was really weird.
That's really interesting.
It's an interesting culture. It's not the same as ours. It's honor culture. Mm-hmm. So even the gospel itself does not quite translate, at least the way I process it, because I think originally when the Bible was written, that was an honor culture. And then we not translated it, but kind of adapted to our culture. And then now you go there, and the guy we were working with says, you can't just go up to somebody and say, hey, Jesus forgive you for your sins. You should, give your life to him, because they're like, what sin?
Right.
Like, this is an honor culture. I don't have any sin. If I have sin, you're dishonoring me. So what are you trying to say? So I was like, oh crap. I was trying to be nice. So everything has to change, Yeah, that was pretty fun. That was a good one. Germany was cool because we got to go there. There was a guy who did this program. It used to be called Master's Commission, very, very long time ago when I first started attending the church. And this guy came from Germany and did this program, became a pastor, and now he's there. So this was like full circle. Now we're taking the same program to his church where he's the pastor and got to do all kinds of outreach and building and different things there. But my favorite place probably is in the mountains in Mexico. We go down to Oaxaca, Mexico. If you're reading it, it looks like Oaxaca. The Mazateco. So they're the natives, some of the natives. There's the Zapoteco, Mazateco. There's all kinds of different tribes there. And they live up in these huts up in the mountains. And it looks like, it looks like we had an hour to build a fort because it's going to rain. And that's kind of dirt floors. And they're burning fire. Like that's how they're cooking, with open fire. And they got wood inside their little hut. And it's got vents. And it's just there's coffee beans growing up the trail as you're walking. It's like giant leaves, tropical. And these people are some of the most amazing people. I love the way our church partnered with the missionary there. As we went there, we did some outreach. I watched a whole entire village, probably 100 people, maybe less. He gave the gospel message, and every single one of them raised their hand, asked Jesus to come into their heart, just went through the whole thing. And next thing you know, they're reading their Bibles. Next thing you know, they're getting on fire for Jesus, and they're like out there witnessing to other, going down. You walk 2 hours down to the next village, and 2 hours back up the mountain, and then we went back the next year, and we built a church, and now they're kind of self-sustaining. And then we went back the next year, and we ministered out of that church to another village, and the similar thing happened. And then we went back again and built a church there. And then we went and built a training facility, and the missionary kind of took over from there. And so now pastors and churches are big. It's pretty cool because, just to watch that take place. And it's not us going in and doing it anymore. We haven't been there in quite a few years, but it's still growing, and it's been really cool to watch that take place. And there's been some mudslides that almost took some of our team out. That was fun.
Wow. No, that's interesting. I imagine it's got to be quite a skill set to be, or learn to be relatable to that many different types of people and different cultures.
Right.
And that's got to take a unique personality, because you're communicating with people, like you mentioned, in Japan on a completely different level than, what we're used to here.
But it's all about that flexibility. It's all... Yep. I tell the students this. Anybody that's been on a missions trip, you'll know this lingo. You're like, all right, guys, we're going on the mission trip. So whatever they put in front of you, you're going to eat, right? You're not going to offend them if they put a sheep's head in front of you, which actually happened in the Navajo reservation. They put a sheep head, and they tried to get Pastor Jim, our senior pastor, to eat the eyeball because it's a delicacy. He wouldn't do it. He was gonna do it, he says, but I don't know. You can ask him about it. But the chief came over. He's like, "I got you, Pastor," and he ate it. I was like, "Oh."
That reminds me of one time on an ice fishing trip. Something about waxworms.
So the point being is that you turn into flexible because you can do anything for the season, right? You can do anything for the season. We know that. We don't always do that, but we know that. And so when you go on this mission trip, you're going to be tired. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to be sleeping in a tent on the ground. And you're not going to get good sleep. The dogs are going to bark too early. The roosters are going to crow too early. It's just plan on having a terrible time physically. You're not going to be able to take care of yourself. You're going to be eating menudo and things like that. It's like, okay. Mm-hmm. I literally remember chicken soup looked so good. And then I saw this claw flip up and the claws are, I'm like, dear God, we eat this, right?
Chicken foot.
That's your spoon.
Yeah. And, you can go there and you mentally prepare yourself for that. And you go, okay, this is a mission trip. Now I know what it is. I go there, I do hard work, I do cool things for the kingdom. And I sacrificed a lot. And I put everybody else above me. And I didn't want to offend them. So I ate the nasty, gristly chicken foot. And then I was there. I did that. I was on the way back home. And God had this conversation with me. Not audibly. I've never heard God's voice. That'd be cool. But I sense his presence. And you just know when he says something to you. And so I'm sitting there on the plane. And I start joking with everybody there. And I start singing the song. You guys might know it. It's like, back to life, back to reality.
Oh yeah,
you know what it is. I don't know who sings it, but you know the song, right? I was close enough to. So I'm like, I'm getting to go sleep in my bed. I get to have warm showers. I'm so excited. I'm gonna eat a cheeseburger or whatever. And I felt the right thundering hand of God's knuckles on the back of my head just pop, and I'm like, what?
Right.
And he said, really? He said, really? You want to go back to life, back to reality? He You just made more sacrifices. You had the most trying time probably of your life, walking up a mountain 2 hours, back down a mountain 2 hours, hiking with all this crap you have to carry, and eating crap you would never eat in a million years. And then you look at the value, you look at what took place. People's lives were transformed. People's eternities were changed. He said, but you want to go back to life and back to reality. And I was like, ow, my head hurts, you know? And that was a very sombering moment where it's like, that's what, to be flexible. I tell my students, I say, we're going to prepare. This is what we do, all this stuff. But guess what? Life is a mission trip. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Life is a mission trip. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's a vapor. We're here for 80 years, man. And what did you do for what? So I got to hurry up and go invest really well and go to school and get the education, do all the things. And I got to work really hard so I can get the money so I could get the house. Then I got to pay the house off. Then I can have a retirement. And then when I got the retirement, it's going to be great because you know what I'm going to do? Sit there, I guess.
Right. It's always on to the next thing.
Go fishing.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that story. Yep.
Go fishing.
Yep. So, yeah, I think we miss a lot because you can't be too nearsighted, but you can't be too farsighted as well.
Right.
It's that pendulum. It never stops moving. Life hangs in the balance, right?
Yeah, that's a good perspective to have.
Yeah, I mean, you're driving down the highway. You don't get to correct to the left and then let go of the wheel. You still then have to correct back to the right. You never let go of the wheel. Well, I mean, you might for a second, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
You're always correcting left and right. Always, always. And people, for some reason, we want an insta-fix, the easy button in life, and it's not reality.
I think it's human nature to always want to follow the path of least resistance.
So
it's trying to fight that inner urge.
Yeah, if you want to die,
Yeah,
go ahead.
right.
If you want, what's that? I can't remember where this quote was from, but it said, "If you want a hard life, do the easy things now."
Right.
You want an easy life, do hard things now.
I like one. It's why are you taking all day to do something you don't want to do? Like, let's just get it over with. Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah,
Oh,
we know the things that produce the fruit. Working out hurts. Waking up early sucks. Eating right's not as tasty.
Right.
Pick your poison. It doesn't matter what it is.
Absolutely. So what are maybe some misconceptions that people have about, the church in general, not just, your church specifically, or about pastors in general, things that you encounter where people might make assumptions?
That we don't make mistakes.
Right.
That we're perfect. That we're God. People put us on a pedestal. I watch that happen a lot. I threaten my students, don't you dare put me on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, because what happens if I fail? What happens if I have a moral failure? What if I have a low moment and something terrible happens and I go and just all out sin, and I'm just like basting in it? Now you're going to lose your faith because you're looking at me instead of looking at Jesus. I think people think that, the pastor's the perfection. You see big pastors fall all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that they were never good? That's
Right.
not fair. If that's the case, then we're all screwed.
Yeah.
Like everybody's got crap, right? Everybody's got stuff.
I'd certainly like to hope that we're not all judged by our worst moments.
No, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And in fact, as a Christian, we're judged by Jesus' best. He did that. So, yeah, it's. I think that's a big one, is that people put pastors on a pedestal. And I'm not saying that. I've seen and I've done and I've ministered to a lot of people. I've helped a lot of people through a lot of situations. So, yeah, we want to be there for you. Yeah, God has absolutely called me to be here and now, 100%. But that don't mean I'm perfect. That means I'm in the car too. We're all along for the ride.
Right.
It's the destination. It's having that course set. I understand what I want, and I'm willing to go through that fire to get there. But I'm still going to trip here and there. So I think that's probably the biggest one. I think I don't know if this one's one anymore, but people used to say, all the church wants is your money. And I just laugh. I'm like, man, they'll take it, but that's not all they want. I promise you that. Ministry does not happen without money. Period. Like we do things all the time. We do back to school. We're getting ready to do a back to school thing. We're going to give backpacks, and we're going to find the need. We're going to fill the need. And we're going to do it, obviously, in the name of Jesus, but we just want to bless people. We want to love on people. That's the goal. Love on people, love on them well. And those things don't happen without finances. This school that I'm running doesn't run without finances.
Sure.
I can't be there without finances. I'd have to go get another job. You know, it's just, I don't even know if that's a thing anymore, to be honest. I hear people say that, but it's usually the older generation. Like, all the church wants is my money. So I don't know if that's still a thing, but I think Jim Bakker's kind of old school. So that was like that era, I think. But sometimes the scars are still there.
Is that the TV preacher?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Back in the 80s or whatever it was.
Yep. You come on after the cartoons at night.
Yep.
I remember that.
Perfect. I don't recall that one.
No, it was
Maybe
on
a little
middle
bit
of the night.
slightly before my time.
Whatever.
That wasn't a shot.
How old are you, Nick?
I'll be 40 this year.
Oh, dude, I'm 47. I got you.
Yeah, we're good.
Don't worry. I'm the old man in the room.
That's all right. You've been around a long time. Probably a lot harder to get to the kids now than it was.
Yeah. Youth ministry's changed. I did youth ministry for 18 years. So we did that for approximately 18 years, which is why I have my fifth graders who are now, married with children. And it's like, oh, that's weird. A lot of them are on staff at our church as pastors, which is cool. And youth ministry has changed.
I can imagine. I mean, I think about myself when I was 12, 13, and then I see the things that my daughters see and hear at 12 and 13, and it's like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
wow.
It's a lot different. And just within 5 years, I think it's changed substantially. People want real. Students want real.
You know what? I think you're right.
They're done with the fluff. They're done with the shiny glimmer. They're done with the haze and the lights and all the fun party. I mean, not that they're done. There's a time and a place for that, but that's like, it can't be the constant. They want real, which is great because that's what I wanted to give them anyway.
Right. I think that's probably a problem with a lot of people because everything's, social media and like you said, glitz and glam, and it's just not real.
It's not. It's all, and there's so much. And I think too, because they're on social media, so you get to, like, when an older person gets a scam text or message, instantly they're usually like, they'll tell their kids about it. Hey, look, I'm getting this free 10 grand. It's like, no, you're actually not. That's a scam. But yet the 12-year-old sees that pop up and they go, delete. They don't even think about it. So they're accustomed to it because they're being constantly nailed with this stuff. So they can tell a phony a mile away, right? Whether it's a text or a person, they can tell somebody who's just living that lie. So if you're going to be working with students, you better be genuine.
Yeah. Kids aren't dumb. They know what's up.
Yep.
They'll figure it out.
For sure.
Yeah, I think authenticity is the word that sums it up.
Yeah, there you go.
A society that's really seems to be lacking a lot of it.
It does.
It's like, hey, I just want to know what's going on in the world. I don't want the spin from the left or right or wherever. Like, can't you just tell me what's going on? Let me make my own opinions. And I mean, that's difficult to find.
Yeah, I think that's so literally in our school, that's what we're going for. It's interesting because if I promoted and said, hey, come to my school, you're going to learn how to be authentic, people go, I'm good.
Right.
I already am authentic. And it's
right.
It's true to an extent. Yeah, right. It's like, let me teach you how to be a mature adult. It's like, excuse me? What are you saying?
Right.
That's not what we say. And that's not, I would never make that the focal point. The focal point, I think, far exceeds that, right? It's dying to self, becoming alive in Christ, and then bringing the kingdom to earth. If we make those the focal point, everything else follows. You're going to be a good dad. You're going to be a good wife. You're going to be a good whatever. You're going to be a good employee, because when you put others above yourself, right? That's the golden rule. You're doing the things. You're putting other people above yourself. You're doing the things to other people that you would want done to you. So therefore, it just works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How do you balance that, with your home life? You mentioned you've been married, since you were 18.
Yeah.
Or does it really just become your life?
Years. So that's the beautiful thing. I think a lot of people talk about burnout a lot, and I don't say that that's not a thing, because I know it absolutely is a thing, but I think there's this, and there's a lot that goes with that, right? A lot. It's a hard one to unravel. It's like a ball of yarn just in this big knot, because it's not ever just what it is. It's not like you work a lot, then you're going to burn out. That's not true. I work a lot, but I also rest well. I have it's literally a teaching point that I teach throughout the years. Wherever you are, be all there. Super simple, but man. So if I'm in kids ministry, I don't do kids ministry, But if I'm in kids ministry, I'm going to be the dopiest, goofiest sucker you've ever seen because I know that that's what they're going to connect with. Right. Yeah. I don't care. I want to have fun. I want to enlighten them. I want to love on them. I want them to know that they're loved. I want them to know that they're seen. I want that wherever you are, be all there. If I'm at the, I don't know, someone's funeral, same thing. I'm not going to be dopey, but I'm going to be present and I'm going to be respectful. And no matter where you are, be all there. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Not that we can, go back in time. None of us have that time machine, right? But, if you could give advice to yourself when you're first starting out, or maybe change something you've done in the process, is there anything that comes to mind?
Not really. I made a lot of mistakes, but I think the mistakes are the reason I am who I am. So I can't with,
That was a good answer.
Literally. Oh,
it's just so really. That was perfect.
It's so true. My wife was 4 months pregnant. I was a Christian kid, obviously having sex before marriage. That's how that works. Right. It wasn't immaculate conception or anything like that. So here I am getting married, like, oh, I guess here we go. They call it the shotgun wedding and all that. We were best friends before we were together and whatever, but I would never take that back. Mm-hmm. Never. Because that was a lot of pain. That was moments like, dang, what have I done? But that's who made, if it wasn't for that, the saying, and I said it earlier, hindsight is 20/20. Makes you go, okay, that's where I grew. Actually, I grew there more than I could ever grow by going to a college. Mm-hmm. It's fact. I might have got information at a college, but I got life experience raising a baby and trying to put food on the table. Well, I've learned through my walk with Christ and it is a relationship and just digging into him and who he is, that there's that verse that people love. It's God takes all things and works them out for the good of those who love him. If I take a left or a right at the fork in the road, I win. Yeah. So it's an interesting concept because people, whether they have faith or not, if they're confident, they win. Mm-hmm. And even if they're wrong, it doesn't matter. They make a choice. They pick a topic. Confidence is sometimes it's a bunch of bull. Yeah. You've never done this before, but it doesn't matter because people think you're confident, therefore they'll follow you. And then it works out because they come up around you and they support you. And it's like, well, this is not right. That's not the way it's supposed to be. But for some reason, the things that God puts in motion just seem to be like that, to walk in faith, right? And so hindsight 20/20, I now live a life to where I know that my foresight is 20/20 as well. Mm-hmm. Like I know that no matter what I do, where I go, that God has my back. It could be the worst day. Everything could melt down. I could lose all my finances and home and fail. It doesn't matter. I recognize that God's got my back and that he's going to use it for his glory. And if it's no longer I who live, but Christ in me, then game on.
I think that's a great perspective to have because, no one can change those things, right? So, right. And, that makes you who you are today. I mean, yeah. I look back at things and, wonder if, we all play that game. I think sometimes, woulda, coulda, shoulda. And right. Like, hey, oh man, I'm going into credit card debt, buying yard signs, running for, elected office and getting my face photoshopped onto orange jumpsuits that I've never worn and had them mailed to 50,000 people and, putting my family through all this shit. And, it's like, wow, maybe I could have done that different. Right. But, reality is I couldn't, and it's made me who I am today.
That's it.
And, all the failed relationships, things like that have led me to, my fiance Amanda now. And if you wouldn't have gone through all that pain and all that crap, you wouldn't be who you are, and things could be completely different. So, yep. I mean, I think it's a tough perspective to embrace, and
sure,
like a lot of things easier said than done, but I think it's a healthy one.
Sure, because we can't control it.
Right, and I think
that's the point.
And human beings, I think, are the only animals on the planet that punish themselves for stupid things more than once. Right. It's like a squirrel runs across the road, almost gets hit by a car. I don't think they beat themselves up.
Right.
About it the rest of the day.
And again and again and again.
Right.
Fact. Yep.
So, no, that's good advice. I don't even know if you meant it to be advice. But.
I don't think I did, but I think it goes with, and the thought that's stirring in my head is I wasn't meaning to go there, but that there's a difference between happiness and joy, right? Happiness is circumstantial. If I give you a brand new Ferrari and then I borrow it to go get a Coke and I wrap it around a tree, And I'm like, sorry, dude, my bad. Your happiness is gone. You're probably going to be pretty
Quickly.
upset.
Right.
Yeah, right? It's circumstantial. It has to do with things. It has to do with items. It has to do with what I'm getting. Joy is not like that. Joy is not like that. It's not, it can't be taken away because it's not something that you can be given from me. Right? Does that make sense? So it's more like a God thing. It's more like it's a spiritual thing. Joy is the spiritual thing. It's eternal. And that's a choice that comes with a relationship. Mm-hmm. Right? So yeah, I might lose everything, but I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. I understand my call in life.
Right.
You know?
And it's funny, somehow I feel like the things we own end up owning us sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
I feel that way about my boat. Being a finance guy, it's like, did I really have to break it down to what it costs per boat ride, based on how many times I use it during a summer? And it's like, oh man, based on this math, this really doesn't make any sense at all.
That's good.
Yeah. So the absence of that, I think is good. Just the material stuff, it's all going away eventually.
Oh yeah. For sure.
Is there anything you'd like to add that I might have missed? Maybe where people could find you.
Well, Freedom Center.
Or learn more.
Yeah.
We'll put some links in the show notes.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Yep, I can give you all the. I mean, if you look up Freedom Center online, everything will come up. We got a firecracker. We got a run. You're a runner, aren't you?
Rucking primarily. So it's
even
like
better
for people who hate running.
Right? Yeah, that's perfect. We're doing a run. It's a fundraiser. It's the firecracker run. It's right before the parade route on the 4th of July, which is a couple days, not too far away. You should come run with us.
Oh man,
on,
just don't put fun in front of run.
No, there's a two.
That is a sin.
2.5. Yeah, I know. Yeah, 2.5K as well. So I'm just saying that can be fun because you can go nice and slow.
No, rucking's great. That's been.
I have not done that. I want to do that.
Every Wednesday. Welcome to join us.
Every
Got a
Wednesday?
pretty good group of guys. Yeah, I haven't missed. That's one thing I've been showing up to. I haven't missed that. 4:30. I'll tell you the location when we're done here. But
awesome.
No, that's been good.
Cool. Yeah, no, I definitely like to do things like that because that's where growth comes from.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
Growth of blisters.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man.
Well, appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been good talking to you, and I think people get a lot out of this. So, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll have links in the show notes if you want to learn more.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.